Good evening and welcome. This is a virtual and an in-person board meeting of the Dearborn Public School System. Today is September 14th, 2020. It's 7 p.m., 7:02 p.m., so we're going to do bad timing. I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. We'll have roll call, please, Madam Secretary.
Mary Lane is here. Roxanne McDonald? Here. Dr. Michael Mead?
Here.
Mr. Adil Mosek?
Here.
Ms. Mary Petchikoff?
Here.
Mr. James Thorpe?
Here.
President Hussein Berry.
Here. Next item, please.
Next item is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Ms. Kristen Waddell, principal of Whitmore Bowles Elementary, will introduce students who will lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good evening, Board of Education members, Dr. Maleko, and all of the Dearborn community members. It's an honor for us to be here tonight to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's make no mistake, putting together tonight's pledge has definitely been different. We would have much rather have been here with you in person. But our Whitmore Bowles families are honored to be the first school to do it for you anyways this school year. Citing the pledge tonight are students from two of our amazing families, the Pomeroy family and the Ziga family. Please stand and join Isla, Brody, Olive, Jatana, and Gina Lee for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much to our wonderful pledge leaders and
Thank
for
you.
all of you for having us. Have
Thank
a
you.
wonderful evening, and here's to a great school year together. Go Eagles.
Go Eagles. Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is the superintendent's update. He starts usually with a moment of silence.
Thank you, Secretary Lane. So we'll start with a moment of silence. I know many of us may have seen just even over the last weekend of deaths in the community, and the number of cases is almost 7 million, and the deaths are 198,000 in the U.S. as a result of COVID-19. In Michigan, 111,000, 6,500 deaths. So we'd like to take a moment of silence for everyone in the state, the nation, and the local community. Thank you, everyone.
Dr. Maleko, before we go on, I know one of our colleagues lost sister-in-law, and if she wants to make a comment, give her the opportunity to. I want to make a comment regarding a family member of the community that we just lost. Mrs. Al-Sayed was planning to come in here and say a few things about her friend, good friend, God bless her soul, Jean Joseph. Jean is a community activist. I don't think there was ever a community forum or a community meeting that we the board members, Dr. Maleko, did not see Mrs. Al-Sayed and Jean Joseph. Jean, I know, I reached out, I did not know some of her family members. I know one of my colleagues, Trustee Petchikoff, was good friends with the family. She was pretty sick the last couple months when she was still with us, and she lost her life, I believe it was September 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, we just wanted, I should have said that before the moment, so I had to include her, but, yeah, I mean,
She was a former employee of the school district, a custodian who had to retire early due to disabilities. And she was shared with me the Oakland PTA. She was McCullough Eunice PTA. She was my DFNA vice president or treasurer for many years as well. So she was always active in the community and always wanted to give back and fight for the community.
when you have hundreds and hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, say good things about you after you pass away, you know you could live a
It should
good
be
life.
very much missed. She's also my neighbor.
Yeah, Jean, we miss you and we love you.
Yes, very
and
much.
God bless your soul. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt, I just.
You're
wanted to say
fine,
that.
you're fine.
Mary?
So,
It's okay.
No,
she
it's
don't-
okay. I don't need to say anything, but as to Jean Joseph, she spoke before the board repeatedly and advocated for her grandchildren and other children in Dearborn schools. So, yeah, they'll all be missed.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Malika, sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate the comments too, and thoughts and prayers go out to her family from me as well. So we're gonna go to retirements now under agenda items. And we have every month, we have several, and so we want to congratulate the retirees and thank them for their years of service for Dearborn Public Schools. Deanna Allen Parks, 29 years of service. Elaine Burkholder, over 20 years of service. Laura Coca, 29 years of service. Valentina Craig, 24 years of service. Joyce McCreary, 21 years of service. Angela Rodriguez, over 22 years of service. Anissa Yahia, 26 years of service. And Renee Zaja, over 9 years of service. Again, congratulations and thank you to our retirees. Oh, you know what? One more. I almost missed some. Patricia Rizik. I did not want to miss her.
Ooh,
Over
yeah.
27 years of service. It was in my bottom notes.
You'll
So
definitely get in trouble if you miss it.
yes.
Thank you.
Glad I caught it. So.
Just keep going, Doctor.
Okay, so the next, we want to talk about the extended continuity of learning plan, which is on the agenda tonight for approval. It's part of state law. I'm going to ask Mason Malibazi and Fatmi Faraj to come up. Just wanted to mention too that, I've been on several meetings with the Wayne County Health Department, the Superintendent Association, just over the last 2 weeks. In Wayne County, and you're going to hear from Mason and Fatmi, but they're very concerned with the county numbers. And we just got indication. So we were monitoring the numbers in the county from June to July to August, and they were really around 3, no more than 4% on a given week. They went up to 5.5, which hadn't been that high since the start of the pandemic. And now we just heard today that they're about, I think, 6.2 positivity. So that's one of the indicators that is given. And the county is coming up with a system in alignment with the legislation to guide school districts and boards of education as to what form of instruction they may want to choose to be in. All the data that I got from the meeting, they have this matrix, which is like on a 5-point scale, and they're concerned with Wayne County. And this does not include Detroit. Detroit has their own data. So it's Wayne County outside of the city of Detroit. And so that's why it's really influencing our decision, including we were hoping to start learning labs, but when we looked at and Amy Candace presented this well over a month ago at her study session, that CDC is recommending that 5% positivity. Well, we're above that. So we're gonna have to temporarily hold off on the learning labs until we get the numbers in place. And I know Mason's got the information and the data, and President Berry and I talked about this today, but we have had, and we've only been open with staff on a partial basis for 2 weeks. And we've had several, not outbreaks in the school, but we've had several positive staff members that have tested positive and others that have been put in quarantine. And I know the board gets the report and she's gonna have the data to present on that. So I'm gonna let them present, but I believe there's a question in there.
Trustee Petrichoff, please.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure too that when we say the 5 and 6% positivity, that's for the entire Wayne County, but Dearborn itself has had an even higher positivity rate over the past few weeks with much larger positive cases. Now that might be due to the way the testing was conducted and concentrated here, I don't know. I just want to make sure that when we talk about the positivity rates, because it kind of gets diluted when you go throughout all of the Wayne County community. As to a particular city, like ourselves, we are seeing high positivity test cases, but like I said, it might just be the way other communities are testing or not testing that gets their numbers lower than ours. But I want to make sure that the community understands we've had very high numbers that have been posted
Yeah.
just exclusively to the city of Dearborn for positive test cases recently.
So what I'm hearing you say, trustee Petrikov, now when you say 5.5% and 3% and 6%, that is the 7-day average of the percentages of the positivity rate. They don't break it down, the Wayne County or the state does not break it down into cities. But for Wayne County, it is about 5.5, and you're saying now you're hearing 6.2.
Today it went up to 6.2.
So what I'm hearing you say is, yeah, we know Dearborn is bringing the average down, or bringing the average up in Wayne County. So in
Yes, we're-
Dearborn,
right.
if it's 6.2 in Wayne County, we know what that means. It's 6.2 plus in Dearborn. So the
Yeah.
decisions we make are for the Dearborn
Right.
community, the Dearborn Public School District. So the reason I'm bringing this up because I'm sure everybody else is getting the same thing I'm getting, that so-and-so district is doing this and so-and-so district and this city's doing that. It's like completely different than the information that we're dealing with. So
We have to protect our
just so we're on the
community
same
at this
page.
point, yeah.
Go ahead,
Okay,
please.
thank
Sorry.
you. Thank you for the clarification.
Good evening, Board President and trustees. So, as Dr. Maleko started to explain, we are looking at. Right now, we're not currently ready based on the COVID data that we have for Wayne County and then what we know about what's happening in Dearborn. We're not ready for in-person instruction. However, God willing, before we know it, we will be working at heading towards implementing a blended model with some form of face-to-face instruction. And so we really just want to get ahead of the game as much as possible and look at what our options are for blended learning, because most likely we would not go from virtual learning to 100% all students in classrooms. And so we really want to be prepared as much as possible and act in a proactive manner. And so today we're going to talk about the mode of instruction, what indicators we are considering as our analysis continues for when is it going to be appropriate to provide a blended model of partially in-person instruction and then partially virtual instruction as well. When we speak about Wayne County positivity rates, just to specify, that does not include Detroit. So as you know, Fatma, you're doing the slides, correct? Are you doing the slides?
I think David is.
Oh, he said you're
David?
presenting. So I don't know, can anyone see these slides or no?
So
The
I can-
board has
I can present
We
the
have
screen.
them.
We have the slides, but they're
Not-
not.
Not
on.
up there. Fatma, will you please present? Yes,
Yes,
thank
Fatma.
you.
Rami, if you could please present your screen, thank you. I'm sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you, Fatmi. Okay, so as you know, we have the K-12 100% virtual option. And I can tell you that elementary is quite set on that. We haven't done any staffing changes for secondary for the virtual option. And those are the students and parents that elected to go with virtual option regardless of what the CDC and the Wayne County Health Department guidelines tell us. So we're going to look quickly at the indicators. Fatmi, if you can please click that blue link that says indicators. And pending the achievement of district indicators to resume in-person learning in alignment with the Wayne County Health Department, the Michigan Department of Health, and the governor's return to school roadmap, one of the following hybrid models that I present will be implemented. And again, we're just presenting this as soon as possible so everyone has time to review it. It will also be discussed at the school reopen committee of over 80 people coming up on September 24th. And then these are the indicators. These indicators are based on the Wayne County guidance that we have for each phase that we're in. And so we took a combination of the low to medium risk. So they had some indicators that were recommended for the low risk to be considered low risk and some that were considered medium risk. And so we combined the two columns into these indicators here. Community Wayne County, rate of positivity ranges between 3 to 5% average through a 7 to 21 day period. And so like President Barry explained, that's the average. So X number of people get tested Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday through Sunday, and it's the average positivity of those days. That's how we get the positivity rate. And so we're hoping to get to a 3 to 5%, less than a 3 to 5% range. A 3-week decline in the average number of new cases, positive cases in Dearborn. Wayne County is not able to give us a formal positivity rate specific to Dearborn. So we have tried to get that number. That number is not available. So therefore, we do know when we have a 3-week decline in the average number of positive cases. And what that means is it's not that you might have, out of 3 weeks, you might have 20 great days where it's declined, and you might have one blip. So it's the average of that, 7 to 21 days. Also, there's the community spread. It's really important to understand that community spread, it's not known to be a significant attribution to the number of confirmed cases in Dearborn. So right now, we know that community spread in Dearborn is an attribution. And I go on further down to explain what community spread is. And really, it's that the spread of a contagious disease to individuals in a particular geographic location who have no known contact with other infected individuals. And so they haven't gone and they haven't been around someone specifically with COVID, but they've been in the community around quite a few people. And they haven't traveled outside of the geographical location where they live. And so that's what community spread is considered. And so when that's not an attribution to the positive cases, that would be one of our indicators that we're getting closer to be able to provide in-person education. Wayne County Health Division has a school decision matrix, which has not been released yet, and we tried to get it down to the final hour today, because that matrix is really gonna help us give us the guidance that we need to be able to resume in-person instruction. So once that high school, the Wayne County Health Division school matrix is available, we will be all over that.
And can I add to that? My understanding,
do.
the reason it's not available is because there may be some changes in Lansing as we speak right now. That's why.
Thank you. So indicators will always be adjusted to align with any modifications that we get from the local health department upon their review of the Michigan data-driven school-specific metrics. So the Michigan school-specific metrics are also not available at this time. But once those become available, we will be open to always looking at these indicators to say what do we need to adjust based on the new information that we receive. Also, the effectiveness of the Dearborn. So we were planning on using the Dearborn Learning Lab in our safety protocols as an indicator as well. Although we're delaying the start of learning labs at this time, we're still going to plan to provide virtual learning labs, but in-person learning labs, the start date will be delayed. It won't be Monday as planned. However, we're going to see how that goes, and that will also be an indicator of how well are we doing as a district implementing all the safety protocols that we've developed and that we've continued to communicate and will continue to do so. Okay, so those are the indicators. That was a quick overview. I'm sure that we'll probably revisit these. And again, there's a school reopen committee on September 24th that will also be reviewing these as well. So the first model, Fatmi, if you could just click on the next slide, please, is we have two blended options, two for elementary and two for secondary. Okay, so for pre-K to 5th grade, you divide the kids into two groups, Group A and Group B, or however you want to say it. I thought Group A and Group B just made it more clear in my mind, but apparently that's not how everyone thinks. Group A attends 3 hours in the morning. We disinfect the touch points, and Group B attends 3 hours in the afternoon. Groups A and B are provided with asynchronous, which means not virtual. It's just that it's virtual, but it's posted and it's not a live Zoom lesson, face-to-face live with a teacher. So both groups are provided with asynchronous learning opposite the times that they are not physically in school. The special schedule is to be determined, but likely one special per day for 30 minutes. And again, that's volatile. It's an estimate of 30 minutes. Everything's different when you try to create the schedule. Things do change. That's our goal. Students would take a box lunch home for that day and breakfast for the next day. Cleaning of touch points will take place between the AM and the PM session. What are the challenges of this option? The challenges include, one, it's really important to know that the district's ability to provide transportation, currently the way it is, it would take 2 hours to pick up all the students, 21,000 students, and then drop them all off. You need another 2 hours, and then you need another 2 hours to pick up the next batch of students, Group B, for the afternoon, and then drop them off. So facilitating how transportation would work is a challenge. However, the number of students that opt into the virtual 100% virtual learning program would impact the district's ability to be able to provide the transportation effectively. Disinfecting touch points every 4 hours is a requirement of phase 4 and highly recommended in phase 5. In order to achieve this requirement, all staff, regardless of classification and or union, will be needed to contribute. Like if we're really gonna clean effectively the touch points that everyone's that are using after 4 hours, one custodian is unlikely to be able to do that for the entire building in that time frame. And so we would have to look at how we can ensure that we're cleaning effectively. Trustee Petrikov.
I just need clarification about the transportation issue, because this is K-5 and we don't have as much busing at the K-5 level. So we're not talking about moving that massive amount of students, I'm assuming, as opposed, because most of the kids are, it's supposedly a walk to neighborhood school for the most part. So
that's
is that a realistic?
It's still something to be considered, because if we go blended K-12, it wouldn't just be elementary that we had to transport.
I know, but what I was looking at was this was a K-5 model, so.
Right,
yeah.
so, but if we implement K-12 blended, right now we're looking at the blended option of what that would look like for elementary, but we have to remember that we would still be providing
Sometime in
transportation for
right.
secondary. So this is just one piece of the transportation responsibilities. So if we're gonna go, let's just say that on whatever date we went blended, 50% in-person, 50% virtual, we would still be responsible for, we would still be trying to
If we
provide.
chose to do the K-12 perspective, because
yes.
we don't necessarily have to.
So we don't
choose that
have to do
either.
the K-12. However, I will tell you that the teachers union, it's either, they're all one union.
All one
So if
or-
we're asking the elementary teachers to
Okay.
report 50% of the time.
That's why I wanted to be sure I understood
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
So trustee, you're absolutely right. What we're looking at is only the elementary option, but that's because if we went elementary blended, we would still have to consider, are we gonna go blended for
Middle and-
secondary?
Right.
And in an ideal world, we would want our secondary kids to come in too. So that would involve transportation as well.
Okay.
So we're not saying that it can't be done. We just wanna make sure that we can do it and do it effectively. And we know that there might be snags with that.
Some logistics.
But we don't
yeah.
rule it out whatsoever. We're still very
Okay.
optimistic, because we hate when logistics like transportation stop us from getting the kids here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So option 2 for elementary is also dividing the students into groups A and B. Group A would attend full day every other day. Group B attends full day every other day. Groups A and B are provided with asynchronous learning. Again, that's a virtual activity that does not involve any face-to-face time online with the teacher on that day. So it's opposite. So they come to school one full day, have face-to-face instruction, and then they're working from home virtually, given the activities online from their home opposite those days. The special schedules to be determined, but special should occur on a daily basis. Same thing, students would take a boxed lunch and breakfast home at the end of each day for the following day. Challenges is this option. Disinfecting the touch points is required every 4 hours. And it's a requirement of phase 4, highly recommended in phase 5. We plan to implement what's highly recommended. Even if it's not required, we want to disinfect the touch points. In order to achieve this, same as the other one, is that we need all hands on deck to really, truly be able to disinfect all the touch points at the 4-hour mark of the school day. And we always want to remember that the building, so we always get this question from administrators and from teachers where they're asking, well, how do we determine what's our building capacity at this time? When it's blended, what's the building capacity? So the building capacity is different for every building, because every building has different layout, different format, different size rooms. And so that's determined by the school's ability to effectively implement the strict guidelines for social distancing. So how well can a school social distance? That determines what the building capacity is for that school. And the strict guidelines for social distancing just came out from Wayne County Health Department. So that's what the strict guidelines are. They're not the guidelines we made up, but they're the guidelines that are provided from the health department. So some building capacities are going to be greater than others because they have more space to work with. And again, the number of students that opt into the 100% virtual learning program impacts the amount of time in-person learning is provided at all levels K-12. So the more people that are online, then the more students we can have in face-to-face. And those are ever changing, those numbers.
Might I ask a question, Mesa?
Yes, absolutely.
Have all of the schools been stripped down, deeply cleaned during the summer? And were all the lockers emptied, the desks, everything gotten out of the buildings? And in the future, I'm assuming that students wouldn't be using those, not in the short term, but conceivably in the long term, they'd be back to the gym and the other places. So maybe we could have a presentation on cleaning even, I don't know, but I just wondered, has everything been completely sanitized?
Yes, so Trustee Lane, so the lockers are emptied out every year at the end of the school year on a normal year. That's part of the process, is that all the lockers are opened and emptied out. All the rooms are deeply cleaned in the summer, and that's part of our normal process for any school year pre-COVID. And so yes, that was all done this summer as it typically would be. As far as what the cleaning plan looks like for the in-person learning, I would agree that I would prefer to keep that as a separate presentation so we can get into the details, such as will lockers be used, and what will the cleaning look like. Now, I think it's important to say also that we do have information from Wayne County and CDC, and this is published online and anyone can access it, is that there have not been cases of COVID being transmitted, confirmed cases of COVID being transmitted through the surface. And what that means is that one person has it, they touched, for example, a playground. There's been no confirmed cases that that's how COVID has been transmitted. And so the governor's plan in the phase 4 and 5 that requires and highly recommends disinfecting the touch points is something we plan to honor. However, it's good to know that there's been no reported confirmed cases that somebody got COVID through touching something, a surface.
Understood. And like the temperature monitoring, this is another example of how COVID changes so quickly.
Yeah.
Our practices are changing, personal, district-wide, everybody is changing everything very quickly. In the beginning, and still when I go over to volunteer dog walk, they're doing my temperature, but I think that that's now been shown to be less effective. So at some point, maybe that won't be done, but right now it's just one thing that we have and we're using. But yeah, I understand about the surfaces, but it will also reassure parents if they know that what measures we're taking.
Absolutely. Trustee Petchikoff?
Just a quick, with either of these blended options with A or B half days or every other day, can I assume that the teachers are different who's doing the in-person versus the virtual then? Because they can't be at two places at one time.
So the way we envision it is that teacher A has 22 students. And so teacher A would, I have to be careful here because I want to honor what teachers.
But you have, for elementary, it is set up that
Yeah.
it is. They're already set. That's why we removed the staffing. For
Okay.
secondary, it's not.
All right.
So if we go back into secondary, what would happen is you would have a combination if, finishing off until the semester break. And we've already had discussions with the Shannon Peterson and the other executives as to how we would schedule that, including with Jane Mazza. So
Yeah, I just am wondering how confusing it is.
No, Dr. Maleko, I think Trustee Petchikoff is asking about like the A-B day. So teacher, they have half their students in person on one day and they have half their students in person on the other day. And then what they do is they would post on Schoology what's to be done on the off days, that they're not face-to-face.
But they wouldn't be in a virtual classroom with a teacher?
No.
Okay. All right.
Now, when we talk about secondary, we got to include what Dr. Maleko.
yeah, sorry, I thought you were talking about the 100%.
Yeah.
But that
There's
does-
different options to
Yeah.
how you can do it.
Yeah. all
You
right.
you could technically have them online where you have certain students in the class. So we're with the synchronous and asynchronous time, it's something that the executives are working with the teachers, to make that determination if we go back. So
Okay.
at least with the 100% online, everyone is separate. for the elementary. So that's the decision we had to make at the beginning of the year when we did the staffing change, so.
Trustee Thorpe?
So I'm thinking about the cleaning and these two options. And it seems like it would be hard to clean the buildings and disinfect them if kids are coming on half-day schedules. But it also sounds like even if we had the kids there all day, after 4 hours, we're saying we're gonna disinfect. Okay.
Everybody gets in under a blanket and we may have to use for the room.
I just don't see why we couldn't wait until the end of the school day.
Because that's the
to do it.
guideline. Isn't
So
that the
that's why
state-
it's highly recommended.
It's
Well-
a guideline.
Yeah.
No,
It's
the one,
not a
the,
rule.
no, the in phase 4, it's required under, and we're in phase 4 right now.
Okay.
So if we were in phase 5, it'd be recommended. In phase 4, it's required.
So it really pushes us that we would have to almost go to a half day. 'Cause I
We
just
could.
can't picture that all of a sudden we're gonna say, all right, we're shutting down learning for half an hour or something in a classroom to disinfect it.
Well, and it's the touch points too. So it's not like it's the whole classroom. It's the handles, the desktop. It's so,
If it's K-5,
Yeah.
I gotta think it's the whole classroom.
Yeah, well, what is required is the touch points, so then we can make the decision as. But I mean, another option, which we've discussed, which is still, is you could also too just do A day, B day, 4 hours, because then within that you can clean it for the end of the day.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm thinking for the parents that work. If your child is at school for only half a day,
You go.
that
yeah.
doesn't do you any good. It would be better if we were able to tell the parents that your kids are gonna be in school on these days each week, and maybe they're able to get into their office
Sure.
if they have to go in. But again, then we run into that issue, and I don't know that you can run them out for a recess and try to get it done at that time. I don't even know if we're allowed to do recess. You'd hope so, it's fresh air.
All great questions and in the heart of all the conversations we have, and we go in circles and circles and circles because there's no easy answer. It's right on.
This is like doing the budget without knowing what the state's gonna give us.
Well, and I just think we're just being proactive to plan for the different options, which they did in the summer, and then we chose the online, and it's like, okay, because we have to plan through those logistics, and I'll give HR and the executives and the teachers a big hand, and I know President Barry talked to you. We had 4,000 kids that signed up, 4,000 to 5,000 in that program. That was a huge staffing change that happened, and we waited as long as we could because we were trying to give parents as much time to
Think about.
think about it. So in this case, what we're doing is getting planning and trying to be proactive, and we wanted to obviously give options to the board and have your input, just like this. So, and then again, you're going to bring it back to the committee as well.
So these are the two agenda items on the September 24th School Reopen Committee. These are the first two agenda items. I think they are the agenda items. And hopefully by then, well, no, it's around the corner. I can't believe we're middle of September, but the third agenda item would have been to assess and talk about how the learning labs go. So we'll see if we have anything to reference. That would have been the third agenda item. Okay. Okay, so 6th to 12th grade blended option number 1 is again dividing the groups into A and B. Group A attends 4 hours, but 3 class periods. And each period is about 80 minutes long every other day. So middle school would go like 10 to 2 and high school would go like, and these are just ideas. These are not, we're just kind of drafting out what it could look like. 9 to 1 for high school. And then group B attends 4 hours every other day. And so if you take a look at the bullet points under the third major bullet point, Monday would, if I was a high school student, I would go Monday, 1st, 2nd, 3rd hour. I would go Tuesday, 4th, 5th, and 6th, and continue that rotation. The reason why it's 4 hours, again, is because disinfecting the touch points. How are we going to clean a high school? And actually, in high school, if they're switching classes, that class has to be, the touch points have to be disinfected each hour, so every 80 minutes, versus doing it at the end of the 4-hour period. And so that was the thinking behind this option. And then when they're not in school, they're provided, again, asynchronous, just to keep that in mind. Synchronous is that when you're face-to-face with someone or on Zoom with someone. Asynchronous is when you're looking at something that's posted on Schoology and you're following along from home. And there was all kinds of memes on social media about how we're overkilling the word asynchronous. But special schedule is to be determined. And same thing about the lunches and the breakfast. We'll make sure that we send those home a day in advance. And then what was the thinking behind why later start times for middle and high school? It allows transportation to be able to disinfect and still get to their routes. Later start times are more in line with the sleep cycles of adolescents, which we know. And third, this will be great for after-school activities and sports. It also allows for high school students who work or have college classes to tend to their other responsibilities. That was compliments of Abe Masher. So that was option number 1 for secondary.
Sure, I just want to put it in bold print. I'm gonna quote Trustee Lane, is one thing COVID-19 has taught us is you could never say this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
So if you can go back to that last screen for me, please, Mrs. Faraj. It says, the last paragraph says, second, the latest start times are more in line with the sleep cycles of adolescents. And we've had that conversation for probably over 10, 15 years now.
Absolutely.
We're finally saying it now. We're saying those words, so I
Absolutely.
just wanted to make sure that was brought up.
Well,
Thank you.
if you're gonna make a change, since we have to change everything else, now's the time to do it.
Exactly.
Because we're throwing everything out.
That's
You always-
right.
I always try to believe change is the only constant. I read that once, change is the only constant. But boys, we've taken it to a whole new level at this
Yes.
point.
Not by choice, but okay.
Yeah, but we'll roll with it, right?
Yes.
Continue doing what we believe is best. Second option for secondary, 6 to 12, is that students are divided into groups A and B. Each group attends face-to-face for a full day every other day, and then participates in asynchronous virtual learning when they're not face-to-face. And same thing with the breakfast and lunches are provided the day before. The major challenge again for this option is disinfecting the touch points every hour is a requirement of 4, highly recommended in phase 5. And we know that this could change. That highly recommendation could change by the time we're ready to go in person. But as of now, we know it's a highly recommended in phase 5, and we are currently in phase 4, which means it's required.
Quick question for you.
Yes.
We're not saying we'd have to line up models 1 or 2 at both the K-5 and the 6-12.
Correct.
It's just those are the 2 options, all right.
But we just have to keep in mind that whichever 2 options we end up with,
We have transportation issues.
we're gonna have to work on
I know where that's
transportation.
going.
Yeah,
The
no,
thing-
you're absolutely right.
If I
Thank you.
can add, with the secondary, I appointed a committee. Shannon and Fatmi will be heading up at middle and high school, and with John Leacher and others and the principals to really study the traffic in the schools and so we're saying 50%, but when it comes down to it, like I'll use this example, Saline Intermediate, for example, has a nice hallway where you can go in a circle. So you can direct and have the arrows going and you can control, so you have the social distancing. Someplace like Duval has one hallway. You don't have the same ability. So the principals are also looking at what entrances to come in and out, and we're gonna do that with the learning labs. But at the secondary, that's a concern because if you've ever been at Dearborn High or Fortson during passing time, you know, even with 50%, it's a lot. So we're getting them to start studying how that would occur and what is the actual number. We're assuming it's about 50%, but that committee is gonna study each of the buildings. So.
Thank you.
I have
Yeah,
a question
Trustee
about
Moses.
screening. I don't know if that's mentioned later. But are we gonna screen every student for their temperature and asking them those screening questions as well?
So I can share with you what we had designed and what was sent out to the staff for the learning labs as far as the screening process goes. And so the screening process is that parents, let's just say this is what we plan to implement when learning labs get going, is that parents, it's my first day bringing my child to the learning lab. I fill out a commitment form. On that commitment form, it says I commit to screening my child by doing the following A, B, and C each day before I bring them to school. And then there's also a screening form that the parent, it's the checkoff that you probably get everywhere you go now. And we're also looking so that they would also have to fill out, yes, I did this, I did this, I did this, and I did this before school. And those commitment forms will stay at the school. And we are looking at doing that electronically, but we haven't gotten there yet.
I
Just-
believe Henry Ford College has an electronic version for screening. Everybody has to fill it out and then show as they come in.
Mhm.
So
For my-
there are apps.
For my 3-year-old's preschool, I got a
Yeah.
text this morning at 7 a.m. Clicked it, said, don't forget your screener. Clicked it, took me to a Google Doc, a Google form, answered the questions, but that's a much, much smaller scale than what we
Right.
would need to do. But it's a start,
And we're already doing that with staff. Staff have the ability to do it electronically. So.
yes. Okay, and then the Dearborn Schools, COVID cases to date, July 25th, we started tracking staff and student, hang on one second. Okay, so July 25th is when we started tracking the COVID cases that we were aware of or that we were investigating. Major kudos to our nurses, Amy, Candace, and Carrie Kahn. They really, really, truly have talked to Wayne County about every single case that we are aware of that involves our staff or our students. They continue to do so. And so Dearborn schools to date have had staff reporting to buildings for 2 weeks, 2 days per week without students. We've had 11 staff probable confirmed cases, 11 student probable confirmed cases, and then quarantining due to the exposure. So you're exposed to someone with COVID, so you quarantine, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you would test positive. And so we had 16 staff members quarantine, 7 students through athletics, and 3 complete high school sports teams are currently quarantining. Okay.
Mesa?
Yes.
Mesa? We know of the high school teams because those are our own self-reports. Do we know whether Michigan High School Athletic is going to be reporting to us or to the county, or what's going to happen with that? I hope we won't, absolutely will not have, and I trust we won't have any orders from anywhere on high not to report cases or to try to suppress information. We need that information from Michigan High School Athletic, from, of course, the county has been really good, but people have different interests in starting or stopping activities. So we depend on everyone else for information to keep all of us safe.
I can add to that. It's required by law that it's reported to the county health department.
Okay, thank you.
And we do currently screen all of our athletes each time they come to any type of practice as well, as we do for staff. The last slide I have is the Wayne County positivity rate, which Dr. Malek
Yeah, we
already touched on.
mentioned, so.
And so I won't reiterate it again, but you can see that.
So I want to clarify on this the positivity rate. So as Trustee Peskov mentioned earlier, if we're testing more, especially in Dearborn, then the positivity rate would be higher, technically. But can we have a rate as well as far as the population? So say now we have 2,400 cases in Dearborn out of the population of 100,000 almost, or 98,000. We're looking at 2.3%.
But those aren't all active cases.
And that's what I'd like to track. That's even a better rate than, say, this rate that's given to us based on the number of people who have tested. So if we go by a rate that is based on the population, this is how many positive cases we have, that's a better number to grasp differently than just based on the number of test cases.
Well, one of the complications with all the testing numbers and data is that there are some communities where the only people coming in already are sick and with symptoms.
Right.
So your positivity rates are going to be much higher in comparison to the number of tests they do, because everybody coming in is only coming in because they feel sick. The more accurate reflection would be you test a random group and then see what the positive ratio is to just a large, broad scale number of the community. That would give you a better gauge of how many are actually in the total population of your community. But that is probably not happening the way one would like to see it happen, so.
And a lot of elected officials up to the very highest are discouraging
They don't
sometimes for
want,
testing.
yeah. So the numbers are gonna be skewed no matter what we use.
Trustee Thorpe?
I had a question going back to what we're talking about, when we will bring back the learning labs, and we want to be between, it says between 3% and 5%. That's a large swing. If we're at 4.5, there's gonna be people clamoring that we should be able to
We're
do the
ready,
learning
yeah.
labs. So I think we as a board need to decide what number are we going to use, because a range of 3 to 5, I just don't see it. Some people are, you know it,
If it's
4%?
4.9, do we say, hey,
Well,
look,
we-
it's too close?
We do, so for the learning labs, it's 5% is what we have. That was the in-person instruction I think you were talking about.
Oh, was
the
that the-
hybrid?
Yeah, the learning labs are really limited, so it's, a gradual start of 1 to
5.
3
Okay.
students, and then we
so
reduce
it's
not a
5 for the
range.
learning lab, but still, again, when we get to in person,
Then it's a range.
having any range is just going to confuse parents. I think we need to say as a board, once we get to this, and again, 3 weeks, probably be like the rolling, making sure that it stays low.
Right, we have to maintain.
We need to figure out a number and not just give people a range. Because then as soon as we hit the 4.9, some people think we're going back live, and we might be saying, well, really, we're waiting for it to get to 4.5.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we can need more information before we can make that decision. Is it 3? Is it 3.5?
What are we
The
comfortable
average,
with?
state
Yeah.
average right now is around 3% because there's, like up north in western Michigan, they're doing a lot better job than the Tri-County. Just to go back to Adil's point here, I have a report from Wayne County. It says testing capacity rate in Wayne County. It's a 7-day average. It's 2,835 daily tests per million. It's not, they're not gonna break it down per city. Okay, that's the number for Wayne County. I'm assuming that you're hinting that in Dearborn is probably a higher number,
I would think so.
which I think it is, because there are more. I would hate to get to the point where we're gonna start discouraging testing. I mean, we know how to defeat this disease. We need to test.
Hiding
So,
it isn't the answer.
Hiding it is not the answer. You're 100% right. So, yeah, we need to keep testing to get the accurate information. But I don't know if that number helps you, Trustee Moses. That's a little bit under 3,000 per million. So that's not that high of a number that we're testing in Wayne County. So if in Dearborn it's a little bit higher, it might be 4,000 per million. That's still, we need to test as many people as possible on a daily basis. Anybody else have any other comments?
Just one quick too, that the county is coming up with that matrix that they haven't released, which again, there's talk in Lansing, so that they're not just looking at the one number, they're gonna look at, as you saw, the multiple measures. One of the measures too is actually positive, what they call, positive occurrences within the school when you have staff or students. So that's another measure. And then they do the contact tracing, and then that actually is equated into. So when we were talking about learning labs, our model would actually be helpful because that's what they're also doing. And there's several different numbers, and you have some of them in there, but it would be, and again, so that's coming from the county, and I was on the 2 meetings with all the superintendents. They haven't released it yet, so that one number may be coming soon.
So Trustee McDonald, Trustee Lane, Trustee Mead, anything to add? I can't see
Yes, I
anybody.
have a couple of questions. I've been trying to tune
Yeah,
in,
we,
but I
for some
don't.
reason, we
Yeah, we're
can't
not
see. We're
seeing
looking
you.
at because
Yeah.
we're looking at the report and we're looking at ourselves on the other screen. There you are. Trustee McDonald, go ahead, please.
Yes, I want to go back to and what Dr. Maleka was just talking about, the Wayne County Health, the decision matrix. And you also talked about a Michigan state decision matrix. I'm just wondering if those are in conflict, and I don't know that they would be, but who would we follow primarily?
I don't think they're in conflict. I think what's happening is the state directed the counties to put them together.
Okay.
So
So
it's-
even though we're waiting for both matrices, they
Yeah.
should still be somewhat similar?
Yes, it's aligned with the governor's, so the governor's return to school roadmap, it's all aligned with it. It just may go a little further and more specific. So it's
Okay,
totally
so would we
aligned because it goes
follow-
under the law. And again, they just passed that law, as you recall, like two and a half weeks ago. So that's part of the reason the counties don't have them out yet, is because the law just got passed in the last minute when, you know, that deal that occurred several weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, with what you're saying, I'm assuming that we would follow whatever would be the most stringent anyway, more than
Yeah,
likely.
yes, yeah.
But trustee
Okay.
McDonald does have a point, because Michigan High School Athletic approved return to contact sport of football. At the same time that Michigan Department of Health and Human Services said that contact sports should not be played. So it's very possible that we could have conflicting information and recommendations. That's all over the place. That's been the case since the start of this epidemic.
I just wanted to add, trustee Thorpe, that when we're looking at the indicators and we're talking about the positivity rate, I agree, it would be good to have a solid number instead of a range. But I just want to I want everyone to keep in mind that we want to look at all the indicators. And so we anticipate that when that matrix comes out, that's what the matrix is going to give us. It's going to give us an overall. We don't want to focus on just one, because we're capturing the positive cases in Dearborn, which is city specific.
Yeah.
Some of them are city specific and some of them are county specific. And so our recommendation through all of the nurses' contact with Wayne County is that you look at multiple indicators instead of just the one. However, I still think that that would be a good idea, what you
Yeah,
shared as far as
but we're not
the
gonna
range.
make a decision based on just one,
Right.
hitting one marker.
Exactly.
We'd wanna hit 3 out of 5 or something like that. Or all 5.